I think that would be a better approach. What concerns me about the list in particular are the number of fiduciary boards that are on that list. This is about accountability and transparency for the county. One of the boards that you have listed is the Audit Committee. One of the issues with that committee, and looking at it, I did records requests. And the audit plan that came out for RSM, what it was missing is that the 3 same sentences for the SORL audit. There are issues with the SORL audit that should have been identified. So when you look at that board, there's no alternates, okay? So we need to address some of the problems of the boards with consistency, just like you did with P&Z. You had problems with getting quorum. So for P&Z, you put alternates on that board to solve that problem. So if we look at the boards and we improve the boards and we make them better functioning, it's better for everybody. And it also gives the assurance of accountability and transparency, which at this time is even more important. I attended some of these boards, and to me, it is no coincidence that when I'm attending these boards and I'm highlighting some of the things I'm learning from those boards, and now you want to do away with the boards, is that any coincidence? Accountability and transparency is good government, okay? And to do anything less than that raises questions as to your motives. Thank you.
That's all the cards I have. Commissioner Tobia, anything further?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You want me to go ahead and I tallied these? You want me to go ahead?
If you want to.
Okay.
Sure.
Again, thank you for going and filling this stuff out. I really appreciate it. I was going to do this at the end, but I got 3 of the 4 back. The 4th individual said they were in favor of all the boards, which is A-okay. There were 4 boards that got 2 of 3 folks that they wanted to at least at a minimum discuss. Again, this is not going to happen now. This will happen sometime in the future. I just did not want to waste anyone's time if I was the only individual. Those 4 boards, and again, there would be plenty of time before we move forward with any of these things, are Arts in Public Places Advisory, Building and Construction Advisory, Historical Commission, and the District 2 Canal Dredging Committee are the 4 that received, as I mentioned before, 2 votes of folks that, according to this, boards that folks are willing to discuss. So those will be brought up at a later time. And I would certainly only put 1 on at a time to give everyone the opportunity to meet with folks and let those advisory boards make their case as to why they're, in their opinion, necessary. So that's the result of that. That will be forthcoming. Again, I want to thank everyone for the boards that we currently have dismantled, some that haven't met for years. And when I say years, decades, as well as looking at these future boards. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for everyone for doing their homework.
And that probably needs to be said that many of these boards were even looked at initially because they hadn't met in several years. It wasn't because we didn't view them as having value. And some that have met had no product or had no information, or they're meeting once a year. This was just a list of non-mandatory boards. This wasn't something that the commission was bringing forward to look at eliminating all of them. It was just for discussion. So it's just an informational piece. So just for the record. All right, so I have nothing further on that. So moving on to item I2.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're requesting that the Board of County Commissioners consider and discuss the Solid Waste Management Department's proposed 5-year capital improvement program and financing plan for that program, including associated proposed annual disposal assessment rates, to authorize staff to mail the required public hearing notice regarding consideration of proposed increases to the annual solid waste disposal assessment, to authorize the development, advertisement, and award of a competitive solicitation for printing and mailing services for that public notice of public hearing, including authorizing the county manager to make any minor but necessary modifications to the public hearing notice before issuance, and to execute the contract for the printing and mailing services. Also to authorize the staff to research the most efficient financing method for the Solid Waste Management Department's capital improvement program funding needs, including a third-party engineering study that's required for financing, and to authorize the county manager to approve all budget change requests that may arise from the mailing, competitive solicitation, and the third-party engineering study.
I have 3 cards on this. Ms. Sullivan?
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. So the benefit of attending these meetings for 3.5 years is the perspective I have garnered on this particular topic. This subject, more than any other, that of solid waste disposal, has been discussed more than perhaps any other topic over the last 3 years I have attended. And I want to call out why we have this expense before you from my perspective of these meetings. For 3 years, you talked about starting whether we were going to do the 192 project or whether it was going to be Florida Recyclers. So what happened? In May of last year, you have a meeting where you start the construction of the 192, saying you're going to run out of dump space in Sarno during the summer, and something happened to the 192 project. For the Florida Recycler project that we don't know why that didn't pan out. But the bottom line is, in October, you approved trucking trash and buying trucks to move trash around to different facilities, and only one commissioner voted against that and said, I'm not going to vote for that until I know who's going to pay for that. Well, who's going to pay for that is the public's going to pay for that, because this 192 facility, according to this spreadsheet, won't be operational until 2026, 4 years. So for 4 years, we're going to be trucking trash because our county is reactive management, crisis management, not proactive management, and planning for capital expenditures. At the budget meeting that we just had a month ago or so, you guys actually said we should do an impact study to figure out how we're going to pay for this. What was that, 9 months after you started building the facility? This is shameful. And we talk about accountability and why we need accountability and transparency. That's why we need it. Thank you.
Kristen Lordy?
Good morning, Kristen Lorty. I'm not as versed on this topic as the last speaker. I did look over the agenda items on the topic, and I have a few observations about that. One of them is that I just want to say clearly for the record, this is headed for a tax increase over time. So everybody should know that this is the launching of an initiative for the 5-year program that will be a tax increase for all of our taxes. The next question is it justified and is it needed? I don't have the answer to that personally, whether it's justified or needed. It does say, though, that if we don't do it, that we will run out of capacity at our landfill. What was curious to me is that there's one particular facility on it that was going to get filled up 2 years sooner than it expected. It was supposed to get filled up in 2027, and now instead it's going to get filled up by 2025 because it's getting filled so quickly. We all know that we have more impacts because of development coming along. And my question is what is the county doing to encourage reducing the whether it's they call diverting trash into the landfills, reducing trash into the landfills, programs in order to, advise residents, programs to potentially charge the heavy the heavy trash filler uppers, the heavy waste users. There's programs for this, and there are places that are doing programs like that. And so I'm interested in seeing programs in Brevard that help us to reduce our overall consumption into the landfill or disposal into the landfill so that we don't have to have tax increases and we don't need all of the infrastructure. And if that could use an advisory board, I would be very in support of that. So we could have an advisory board and have some volunteers and experts that look at other cities and look at other places in the country and find out what they're doing to help us reduce our overall usage so we don't have such a crisis that requires all of the taxpayers in this county to have increased taxes, and which is what is moving forward now. So that's my thought on it. I'm not versed on it, but I am interested in reducing our waste. We are having a population explosion and our waste isn't going to go down any, and it has it on my radar to start wondering, what do we do with all the waste from all this extra development? So I hope that somebody is helping to figure out the answer for that and coming up with some more progressive ideas that will help to divert the tax increases for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger Gudis?
Roger Gudis. I see this draft proposal and I understand the issues that are going on here, but as long as I've lived here, and it's been more than 10, 15 years, trash has always been a subject. It just seems to be, let's push it off. We don't have a solution. Or there's some kind of crisis going on that it's not addressed. It is time to address it. Unfortunately, this should have been addressed a long time ago. More thought should have gone into this, but now is now. So the bottom line is something's got to get done, and soon. I just hope wherever this landfill is going to go, or a new site, that people are very careful not to disturb the water table, because that could affect our drinking water. And I'm going to leave it at that, but hopefully this will get resolved correctly. No, I'm not happy with more rates during this time of inflation and all that's going on in the world, but it's got to get done. And had we addressed it sooner, perhaps the cost would have been less. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to note this is a really tough topic. And actually, before I got on the commission, I watched the commission for 4 years. Commissioner Smith, I watched him at that time too. This has been an ongoing topic ever since I can remember watching the board trying to deal with this. The 192 site, we've already started some work on that. That was very difficult. And you can't rush into these things because having a new dump site in your area is not comfortable. And what's so tough about that site is there's a lot of cattle there that graze. So it's not something you wanted to hurry into. We would have had more time, except COVID hit and everybody did remodeling, and it quickly started filling up a few of these sites. The ability to have this work is good. It's going to happen, but you know, as the gentleman just said a minute ago, costs are going up everywhere. Inflation, I believe I heard it's going to hit like 23% by mid-year from the start of the year. So from the beginning, not that it's going to keep going up. That's prices we're looking at for increase. I know with food, and that's kind of what I look at a lot. So this has not been an easy topic or an easy thing to do. It's painful. And so it's not something you can hurry into because it affects everybody. So it hasn't been an easy topic. But County Manager, I want to thank you for all the work that you have done and the thorough job that you've done on trying to get the best thing done for the community. I certainly appreciate it.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just want to address a couple of things. This didn't just happen. This isn't just something that we're Johnny-come-lately to. This is something the county's been working on since what, 2000, 2002, something like that. We worked with Deseret Ranch to buy this property where the new landfill is going 20 years ago. So this isn't Johnny-come-lately stuff. This has been in the plan for a long time. We didn't finally get the last permit that we needed until what, a year ago, year and a half, maybe. it's very, very difficult to get permitting for a landfill. And might I add, had previous commissions not been on the ball and get this thing moving 20 years ago, you guys complained, and rightly so, that we had a 39% increase in our waste pickup, a year ago? Well, can you imagine if we didn't have a landfill that we could go to in a year or two? Just think about that. Where would we put our trash? The trash that is being, and it's been alluded to, infinitesimally increased because of the increase in our population. Throw a hurricane in now and then, and it goes exponentially higher. Where would all that stuff go? Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you. It would go to whatever county might be in the business of taking our trash. And since we don't have a trash, if in that case, if we didn't have a new landfill to go to, we would be at their total mercy. They could charge us anything that they wanted. So if you think a 39% is enough to get your hackles raised, I could use another statement, but I won't. It could be 539%, and we wouldn't be able to say no because we don't have any options, because we wouldn't have a commission back 20 years ago that had the foresight to get this off the ground. And that's not even taking into consideration if we can even find a county, which right now probably would be Osceola because they would take it. Think about the cost of getting it to them. Just think about all the trucks that we would have to hire at whatever price they want to charge us, or we could buy our own trucks for hundreds of thousands of dollars and pay employees to truck it over there. And there would be no end in sight, because if we wanted to try and get a landfill started now, you might be looking at 30 years, maybe 40 before you could even get all the approvals. So it's a lot of disinformation out there, misinformation. I'm just touching the surface here because there's an awful lot that's gone into this. But just to let you people know, we're on top of it and we're moving forward with this. County Manager, Mr. Tobias, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I think we've given a pretty comprehensive attachments to the agenda request, and I think you've got a good outline of the 5 or so items that we're asking the board in the requested action, and we're looking for approval of all those 5 items because we need them all in order to move this forward.
Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this would go to staff because I see media might be out there, and there was a huge issue. There was before, and if I can't believe it was made, so it's very important that we put this down. The increase will be for the first year, $5.13. Is that per year or as was initially reported per month? Because there's like a 12-time factor in there as a difference.
That's per year.
Okay, one more time, just for the benefit of certain people in the audience.
That is per year.
Thank you very much.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Smith. And I'll just say, obviously, Ms. Sullivan's, you've been coming here for 3 years and you know my complaints about the 192 landfill. However, I think you protested once on it. And I think we had a lot of people that don't really understand the impacts of that landfill being at the entrance of our county. But with that being said, I know we do need a landfill. That goes without saying. Florida Recyclers property, I wish that would have worked out. That would have bought us a few years, and maybe we could have, went to different location. We even looked at bringing the service in-house, and you didn't even need to do a study to know that the millions of dollars of capital investment alone, and that really wouldn't have solved our trash location issue. But again, I don't want to be at the mercy of another county, because I did ask that question as well. But for $5.13 a year, it's sad that everything is going up, but that's the reality of the world that we live in. So we're sort of stuck. So that's all I have. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item I3. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the background on this was April 5th of this year, during a regular board meeting, I discussed a draft ordinance relating uniformity of non-mandatory advisory boards. This ordinance largely does not affect mandatory boards or boards which are otherwise required to operate differently by Florida statute, federal law, or our partnership boards, and not exclusively compromised of county appointments. There have been very few changes from what was discussed. I'll go over again very briefly the things that I was interested in bringing in line. Number one was meeting frequency, a limit of 4 meetings per year. Exemptions due to workload and nature of the boards include Board of Adjustment, which conducts an average of 54 public hearings a year, and the Personnel Council. It's important that the board be able to meet as needed to handle any employee grievance or appeal. Second thing, meeting time. I appreciate the input and consideration of the concerned citizen, Ms. Janice Scott, who spoke at the 4-5 meeting and included that a minimum of 75% of meetings must be held during regular business hours. She said that not everyone could make business hours, so this would allow one of those 4 meetings to take place outside of that. Meeting locations, all meetings are to be held at government facilities. Annual reports, a uniform 1-page summary report will be required of all county advisory boards. Mandatory or not, to be published in a regular meeting agenda as well as posted online annually. Staff time and expenditures. For all boards other than those mandated by federal law, staff time will be billed at $50 per hour, indexed annually with CPI, and a cap of $3,000 for staff costs per year. Staff time shall include, but not limited to, attendance of meetings, research, communication, and other tasks done on behalf of or in relation to a request made by a member of the advisory board. And finally, for all boards, mandatory or not, all staff time requests must be made through the advisory board chair on behalf of the advisory board to the designated staff liaison. The attendance policy, an appointee who is absent 50% of the advisory board meetings at the end of the appointee's current term is cause for immediate dismissal from said board. I want to thank Commissioner Smith, who was concerned about the sunset provision that was discussed last time, however, has been removed from the current one, and I do not plan on putting that one back in, so there is no sunset here. He is absolutely correct. Future boards can remove that without the clause in there. And finally, and this is important, exceptions, of course, due to extenuating circumstances can be handled administratively by the county manager. So that is the background. I'm more than willing to answer any questions, but the motion will be to approve legislative intent and permission to advertise for public hearing for proposed amendments to Chapter 2 Brevard County Code Ordinance relating to the advisory board regulations. Again, this is just permission to advertise. That's the ordinance, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias, and I have 2 cards. Kristen Lordy.
Good morning, Kristen Marty. So I guess my question about this is, I'm going to actually start out with positives. There are 3 things in this that I think are reasonable. One of them are the annual report. I think that's a reasonable request. The website info, having that accessible, that seems reasonable to me, to be able to have that available to the public. And 50% attendance also seems reasonable. So we have 3 things that I find reasonable. There's several, the list is much longer of things that I don't understand or don't find reasonable. And one of them is meeting frequency. We have a lot of boards that meet more than 4 times a year, you know, and this is pennies on the dollar that we're chasing here to try to save money for the county. So I heavily disagree with that. The meeting time being 75% during the day, I mean, that can really interrupt a board. If you have boards, you have several boards that do meet in the evening. Now 75% of their meetings have to be during the day. I see that very disruptive to the board. So I just don't understand why we need to disrupt these meetings like this. Location. And they're meeting throughout the county right now. And so we have to now trouble everyone to go and find a county building in order to meet in. What's the purpose? $50 an hour. I said before that I'm skeptical about these rates, and that these rates are often they're staff time. So they're not real extra rates that go to the taxpayer. We're just saying we don't want our staff to be, troubled by working on these advisory boards. Another thing that wasn't commented on is that the meeting minutes and keeping timely meeting minutes is crossed out on the policy. I don't understand why that would be. There's also some cross outs for committees that I don't understand. All requests by the chair for information. To some extent, you can say, well, maybe that seems reasonable. I know that there's a inspiration of a large requester who requested information, and as well as questions about that attendance. My question from a practical standpoint is that what if we have a chair that's not doing that great of a job, and we have a board member who is more diligent and wants to request information? What's the process for them if the chair decides that their request is not prudent? So I see a lot of problems with this request for what I see as not that much gain. And couldn't we just request that from our boards? We want an annual report. We'd like to put the website up on the info up on the website. And do we really have the problem with the 50% attendance? Even the inspiration, the potential inspiration, has been to 50% of the meetings for this policy. So I am not an advocate of punitive policy that could be disruptive to our boards. So I am opposed to this policy. I'm opposed to this policy. So if you want to make those couple of those couple of things, I guess, but I just don't understand. Thank you.
Ron Jacutis?
Ron Jagutis. As I've been told in the past by some, that a county employee works for the county, certainly has to address issues to the commission, but also works for the taxpayer. And irregardless of the board, they're still going to be, if they're salaried employees, they're still going to be paid irregardless of these boards. And number two, as the previous speaker stated, those are exact points. Do something correctly if you find something and you only have 4 meetings a year. That needs to scrupulously be looked at as far as the boards to really understand. And I would hope that the commissioners perhaps need to start attending these boards some way, shape, or form to see truly what's going on. And I'm not saying that you don't, but maybe some of these boards do need more time to go through relevant issues or have a request process to justify more than 4 meetings at a minimum. You just can't solve something on various committees in 4 meetings a year. And that, to the taxpayer, as far as a taxpayer concern, is, wait a second, why are we doing this? We're limiting citizen input. We're limiting on pennies on the dollar for the chairs to understand. And this is an outreach program, kind of like where people get involved. You want people to get involved in these committees. And sometimes there's some very good people out there that can help and provide an additional solution from 2 miles above ground versus being in the trenches every day as a county worker. I'm saying that the county workers do a good job, but sometimes there needs to be a flyover and the bell rings. The bell rings, the idea comes out, and you got a ta-da moment. Thank you. This needs to be further examined.
That's all the cards I have. Commissioner Tobias?
I have nothing to add based on the comments that were brought forward. Again, this is permission to advertise. And clearly I've made some changes from the first one to meet some of the participation from audience as noted in this. So I'm more than willing to look at some of the stuff. However, I'm pretty happy with the work product it currently have in front of you. You want me to read the motion again, Madam Chair?
Oh, I think it's clear. Let's see what the other commissioners have
Sure.
to say first. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I know the answer to this, but the previous speaker mentioned that if you have 4 meetings a year, maybe something important comes up in between, they have to wait. Do we not have a provision that they can convene a special session?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, of course. I've given, I looked at doing that one of two ways. Number one, bringing that to the board to make an exception, or handing that power to the county manager. I think it's probably better to hand it to the county manager. He can make a decision unilaterally
Sure,
in much
on the
more,
fly.
more than meeting. So I've handed that exception to the county manager. I think we all trust him. I certainly do. So yes, exceptions can be made for any of these with the county manager's approval.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like where you put in, sir, the county manager being able to make changes because he knows what boards might need a little bit more more strategic or more on this task. Commissioner Tobias, I asked Miss Abby and about the prompt minutes, and she mentioned that that's under state law, so it doesn't really matter if we put it in or not. It has to be done anyway. So I just want to mention that because that might have sounded a little off to the newspaper. So that's something that has to be done regardless. But I do have just a request, if we could, on page 3, where you're doing the attendances and absences. And I would like to add in the phrase, instead of waiting to the end of the term, that as soon as this threshold is met by the person. So if you've got someone with a 2-year term and they've already missed half of them within year 1, I think that's time to remove them and not wait to the end of their term, if that's possible.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would be more than willing to bring, we'd have to set some threshold. So if you missed the first one, you'd be 0 for 1, you'd be above the threshold. So your thought is.
Well, I'm thinking if they have 12 meetings in a year, which they're not now, and by mid-year they've already missed 7, I think it's time to replace them.
Okay, so you would be more in favor of doing it half of the meetings after the first year. Is that?
Right, instead of waiting to the end of their term.
Okay.
I think, like it says, shall be dismissed from the appointment to the advisory board as soon as this threshold is met.
I have no hesitancy with making that change. I would like to hear where other folks are on that, but
I think it's a great idea because if
sold.
you're an appointee and you're habitually absent and nobody slaps your knuckles, you just keep being absent. So you're.
And the board suffers because they don't get in.
Right.
Yeah, they need them
So,
on there.
because we already had one board that says we need alternates because people don't show up. Well, they don't show up because nobody's holding their nose to the grindstone, so to speak. So I think that's a good idea.
I will make that change prior to advertising, and it will be adjusted accordingly when it comes back to us.
Thank you, sir, because I knew
Thank you.
your intent, so I just thought,
And
that in
maybe
there.
I could suggest is, after 4 meetings, maybe that might cure that issue that you're worried about. Because if there's 2 meetings and someone misses 1 of 2, technically they would hit the threshold.
Correct. Yeah, and
So
they're
maybe after 4 calendar
Okay.
meetings, and that way that would at least be a fair look,
sounds good.
I would say.
and on this as well, I do want to mention, so if there's some boards right now that meet 8 times and they have to meet 8 times, the county manager has the ability and his wisdom now to continue that. So I think Mr. Abate has a good handle on that. So with that in here, Commissioner Tobias, I think this is a very good ordinance you brought forth. It's going to make it a little more consistent, and it also encourages us to go in this direction, and it gets us a little bit tighter on what we're doing here as we serve on board. So thank you, sir.
All right, my only concern with the ordinance is, you charge for staff time. The board pays the staff time? Who pays the staff time?
So, and I learned this in the first day of high school economics. There's something called opportunity cost.
Mhm.
And I'll explain opportunity cost for folks that did not have the benefit of that high school economics class. Right now we
I
have.
know you're not talking to me that way.
Oh, no, it was not meant for, it was not meant for anyone up here at
He
this
was
board.
talking to me.
No. Sorry, Madam Chair. It was, no, absolutely not. Someone in the board who probably knows where they are. We have many absences, or sorry, many openings. In fact, I saw as I pulled into this that Parks and Rec has a big banner up right now coming in. I was just informed that there are 91 slots available to fill spaces. So we're short, folks. And when folks go above and beyond for this, they're not doing the good for the larger county. So yes, we have to fill requests and do all this stuff, but it should be thought that when they spend 40 or 50 hours filling a request, they're not doing their other duties. And some of these have to be done by an individual in which there's just one. So the opportunity cost for this is huge. In fact, it's probably much larger than the $50 there, because it's very difficult when we hear from constituents, why hasn't ABC happened? And the reason is because they're working hard filling public record requests for one individual. So the goal here, quite frankly, is just to deal with that opportunity cost.
Mhm.
And $50 is a fair round number. Provide 60 hours. Again, the county manager has the ability to override that.
I just wanted you to clarify it. Thank you.
Yeah, that was not meant to you. Sorry, Madam Chair. Certainly not in a million years.
That's because you know better. All right, I don't have anything else. So you have a motion. Do you want to remake the motion, or do you want to?
Madam Chair,
Restate the
I'll read it
motion?
again just for
Okay.
clarity's sake. To approve legislative intent and permission to advertise for a public hearing for proposed amendments to Chapter 2 Brevard County Code of Ordinance related to advisory board regulations with the changes suggested with attendance for 1 year instead of 2, that 50% threshold.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Second by Commissioner Smith. Anything further, Commissioner Pritchett? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving on to item I4. Oh, who's going to open it? I didn't know if Abby was going to open it or not. Miss Abby?
I don't mind. This is what we had at our discussion last meeting. We have the information, want to give everybody time to think through it. This is a administrative order that will, if we approve this, we'll just have Mr. Abate work it into the order. This is the same public records criteria that law enforcement uses, the FDLE in the state of Florida. So it's just kind of a tweaking and a piggybacking with what they do in the whole state as far as law enforcement with their public records.
All right, I have 4 cards. Rick Heffelfinger.
Rick Heffelfinger, 2000 Juniper Drive, Cocoa, Florida. I'd like to make a few comments about some comments that were made of their other issues before I move on, because I found them confusing. Commissioner Smith mentioned something about the 39% increase, and it has nothing to do with the landfill. That was a waste management contract to pick it up and send it to the landfill. I'm glad we have a landfill. It's very nice. But the issue really about the increase is the landfill itself. So you're mixing apples and oranges. I don't know if you're confusing anybody but me. You can use some of my time. If you, no, don't waste your time.
No, I won't,
So
believe me.
mixing apples and oranges, it's the landfill's filling up, now shipping stuff. There's additional cost. 20-year process for landfill. I'm glad we started 20 years ago.
Mr.
True.
Heffernan, I would use your time for the subject matter, and if you want to speak on other items, use your public
No, I
comment.
got plenty of time.
Okay.
So,
But you're
don't mix
supposed to
apples
stay
and-
focused on this subject
Okay,
matter.
then I'll move on. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll pull cards next time. The board, the I-4, it's an administrative order, is that right? AO 47. I don't know why the board is spending so much time churning this. It's really, I think, who writes this? Who authors it? It's the county manager? I mean, it's basic policy. So I'm confused on why we're getting, is there a question about costs or who's billing on a public records request? There is. because it's supposed to be the cheapest, most efficient way to get the record to the person. So setting costs, or I don't even know why a county commissioner would get involved. I'm sure they have a public records representative on their staff. Every department has a public records representative on their staff. If you review the actual documents that control how you guys are supposed to do it, I mean, it's pretty thorough about there's a lot of players, and I don't know that we understand what that flow is. I mean, I've got a records management liaison, that's the county attorney. I got a records manager for the records management center. I got a records coordinator, that's county attorney. Most of this is county attorney. I don't know why you guys are getting involved. Records custodians for each department. Department directors are required to maintain databases, train their people. I don't know what the flow is when I put in a public records request. It should be, hey, it goes to the person that's responsible for that. If I have a question for a document from a county commissioner, I guess it goes to your staff. And they say, oh, okay. And we know what he's asking for. Give that to them. If it's digital already, you could just send it. I mean, I've had an exchange with Commissioner Pritchett. Well, like I had two choices. I could do a PRR. This was the document I asked for before the last meeting. It was an electronic document. I got two options, public records request, or they could wait 2 days for them to scan it and send it. I don't think you need to scan unless there's more. I don't know. I haven't gotten anything back yet. So I think the problem is not so much the costs cumulative, it's the flow of getting the records into the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Heffelfinger, on that, it was a Friday afternoon, so I didn't have access to it.
Okay.
If it would have been a Monday, I would have just scanned it and sent it right to you. So that's why it was like a little bit of a pause there. I wasn't at the office.
So there wasn't any more public records. It was just the
I had
document
it with,
markup.
and I had it with
Okay.
me, so that's what that
And
was.
I know you put it up on the Legistar, which is what I asked for to begin with.
Right,
So that-
right after the meeting, we try to get it out as quick as we can.
Okay, that would, so I'll just cancel my public records request because it's still out there. I haven't heard anything.
Sandra Sullivan?
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. Let's be perfectly honest. What this is about is increasing the cost of records requests and making them more difficult to get. Our government is funded on the tenet of good government is funded on the tenets of accountability and transparency. You could start by, if you really wanted to be helpful, put all the public records requests out there on a website where anybody could look them up, search them, and download them. AO 47 wasn't on the last meeting. Let's talk about, here's an example. This is a records request I did for a meeting for a document that was not loaded up to Legislar. This one is $135. Okay, this is 16313, if you want to look it up. The one I probably have the most heartburn with of the changes is unpaid invoices. If a requester has previously received an invoice and has not paid the costs associated with that request, the county will not provide records for subsequent records requests until such time as the past due amounts have been paid. So I have a copy of a records request that I made. There's a statement in it that this is an estimate only. This isn't, they put an invoice if you pay it, but you have a choice. So let me read it. The Brevard County is in receipt of your public records request, and your request has been forwarded to the appropriate departments and or personnel to research. Key port. A cost estimate will be provided to you prior to fulfilling your request. So just like when I go to Macy's to shop for a dress, I pick up a dress, I look up at the price, and I go, you know, that's a little bit too high and I don't want to pay it. So let me give you an example of that. I did records requests and it went to natural resources. And they were requests that I don't think wanted to be provided to me. And so I got the highest, I got the rate of the highest paid person in that department, even though there are people per policy that could have provided that record. That I have an email sent from Commissioner Lover's office that he paid for those to my records requests, and I still haven't got them. So I just wanted to say I would caution this intent to make records prohibited and to slow roll them, because this intent inevitably will end up in the courts, because we have very strong sunshine laws here for transparency. And there's already been one instance of stated on public record an intent to postpone, delay, obstruct providing public records requests until after the Save Lagoon vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchett? No. Oh, sorry, Kristen Lordy?
Good morning, Kristen Lortie. And this item was in particular the inspiration for my coming today. I'm strongly opposed to this punitive policy, which I also think is petty, that we're now having to pay for invoicing. And Commissioner Tobias mentioned several times, because I watched the 4-6 meeting, about how a requester had not paid for their requests. And I think that it likely falls under this category of not having paid for the invoice that ended up being too expensive for the requester, which is not the intent of this policy. The policy that we are advised of in the Florida government in the sunshine is that providing access to public records is a statutory duty imposed by the legislature upon all record custodians and should not be considered a profit-making or revenue-generating operation. Furthermore, it says excessive unwarranted special service charges deter individuals seeking public records from gaining access to the records to which they are entitled. Now, the commission advocates that this is just going to penalize a couple, and that 99% of the people are not going to be affected by the punishment in this policy, which is to benefit requesters who are requesting from the commissioner. So now if I request from the commissioner, it will be $30 instead of $50. That gives me no comfort whatsoever. I had no idea that I would have to pay $30 an hour to get information from a commissioner, even if they decide not to charge that. I have my own souvenir from March, which I've sent to all the commissioners, $159 to get one RFP submission for something that I'm interested in pursuing housing. $159, but I do get the 15 minutes free, because according to the policy, even the current policy, 16 minutes is considered extensive time. So I cannot object to this strongly enough, but it has been inspired through the requesters who are requesting too much information. And so let's talk about that. Why are the motives of people that want public information being questioned? Why do we care? If they want the public information, they are entitled to get it, and the state and the government bodies are entitled to give it to them as easily as possible. And the fact that law enforcement has the same punitive policy gives me no comfort and makes me wonder about what's going on with law enforcement in Florida. In contrast, in my research, I looked up HUD because I have questions on housing, and the HUD policy is much more reasonable and says that all other requesters are charged for search time with the first 2 hours provided at no charge, and duplication with the first 100 pages provided at no charge. In all cases, the total fee does not exceed $25. If it doesn't exceed that, HUD will not charge any fee at all. Now, that sounds like a reasonable policy. When taxpayers are looking for information, we want good policy. We want favorable policy. I object to the current policy. The proposed policy is so petty that it says staff shall not be required to answer any questions regarding public records policy. I object to this policy. Thank you.
Ron Jagutis?
Ron Jagutis. No. No, no. A policy based on law enforcement that applies to a different jurisdictional situation? No. The next thing is, I attended the previous meeting, and what I found interesting was, and I should have done something about it, because this is based punitively against 2 individuals, and their names were brought up by a commissioner. Nothing else was mentioned. Their names were brought up. That's wrong. That shows that this is biased, petty, and wrong. And why do citizens want documentation? Well, they got heartburn. And to get charged on top of it, I guess that's an opportunity cost. This is wrong. The policy should be adjusted accordingly to ensure that citizens have access. And no citizen makes a request out of just wanting a request of tons of documents. There's something there. They smell something or they sense something. This is wrong. And it is petty against two individuals. That's wrong.
All right, that's all the cards I have. Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, ma'am. I have a question for you guys. I don't think we should be paying people's out of our staff funds, out of our office budgets, people public requests. We're not doing that, right? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take my office budget and pay for somebody's public records request.
No.
So, okay, I didn't think that, I heard that, and I didn't think we were doing that. And just a note on this, I had just found out recently, before we did this, that staff was told they're not allowed to help people with public records as far as define their public records. So they would put in a large public records, and in the past, they were able to say, hey, do you want to tweak this down a little bit to get it a little bit more targeted to what you want? And they were told they weren't allowed to do it. Ergo, we had huge public record costs coming through for them. So we're back to what we originally were doing. They're going to help with that, help the public define what they're looking for to help get that down as well. I do want to make a comment here, though. And Ms. Lordy, thank you for coming. Thank you for emails this weekend. But you got a charge for $150 something. Well, what you could have done very creatively, put it in and just get one piece of paper at a time and make it out to 50 of them. And then you wouldn't have paid anything because the 15 minutes would have been free. And so, that's fine. Here's the thing, guys. Before we had the electronics, these were really expensive. Staff would have to go over, dig them out of folders, run them off. So the electronics has helped greatly. The goal is to get the public records out to the public as quick as possible. And maybe we can end up eventually where everything is just online and you can click and look at anything you want. That would be wonderful. But Commissioner Tobias brought up something earlier. There's the opportunity cost. And so if staff isn't working on other things and they're having to do excessive public records, which is fine, you can do them, but somebody has to cover the cost. And although some people might not mind if it's all including taxpayers, other people mind greatly. So, and I've heard the watchdogs, we're kind of put in this position to watch over everybody's interest. So the best thing to do is to get information to the public as they need it and as it's appropriate. But anytime someone does something excessively, there's always a little bit of a cost that has to follow with these things. And I don't know that that's not fair. So I just want to make a couple of those statements. Again, I hope the best thing we can do is get information out. And here's the thing too, if somebody puts in a public record and the estimate comes out, all you got to do is say, I resend it. If you move forward with that and staff starts working on it and they're putting their time towards it, yeah, you got to pay it before you put in another public record. I don't know why that is a conversation. I think that's just appropriate. You go up and order a sandwich at a restaurant and then you tell them you're not going to pay for it. They're not going to make you another one either. So, everybody has to pay for their stuff. Everybody's got to pay for their stuff. Everybody. And if you're not paying for your stuff, who's going to pay for it? Someone's paying for it. So again, the things that we can get out quickly, that's already responsive and appropriate, it's easy to do. But when we get things that's divided up into 40 separate public records, and it could actually be just one, might need help tweaking that down a little bit to what you want it to be. So again, I brought this forward. And as far as the law enforcement doing that, it's because it's state laws. I actually did my ethics courses last night, and this was a heavy topic on it. And this is state laws and what we do for public records. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's really going to lower the cost of public records.
Anything further, commissioners? Mr. Abate, do we have commissioners, it was brought up by a speaker, that are paying for people's public records? Or have we had that in the past, people paying for it out of our office budget?
There was, yes, there was a request by a commission office, by a commissioner to pay for, I think, 3 public records requests from their office budget. That has not been processed by staff.
Okay, I don't know that that's appropriate, because then we would have to select on who we're paying for public records.
That's not what we said we would do with our budgets either.
Right. All right, I just wanted to find out. The reason this policy is going to save people money, actually, when they do request public records. We had a former commissioner who's no longer up here that was charging his rate at $55 an hour. We thought it was 50, it was actually 55. So now a commissioner cannot do that. I know if it's simple email, simple electronic, it'll only take a minute to get. Many of these public records requests, and I kind of went through them because I think there was 65 between the 2 individuals that Mr. Heffelfinger has an issue with us mentioning their names. And, you know, it's funny that anybody, I apologize, Mr. Gurgis then, Jurgudis. One of the individuals requested multiple personnel files of county staff, not commissioners, of people that go to work every day and they work in an office, and they want their complete personnel file, HR file. I'm not sure what purpose, but I don't know if this individual is phishing, but I just have to wonder their intent, because it almost seems like bullying to me. We have a request of a commission staffer. We have a browsing history request. We even have a commissioner who at his personal job got his personnel file requested. So again, you question the motives of this policy that's actually going to save 99% of people money. But I question the motives of the people that are asking for 65 separate public records requests. We have to commit people to be able to handle these, just because we want to make sure that we're doing it legally and lawfully. I don't want staff to try to interpret people's public records requests or try to narrow it down, because I don't want staff to get accused of trying to withhold information, because it's easy to make an accusation, but then staff can't defend themselves, and that's just not fair. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I think this is actually going to save taxpayers a bunch of money, and it's going to help eliminate abuse of the public records law that we have in place, or the administrative order we have in place. So I'll support it.
Madam Chair, has a motion been made?
Did you make a motion, Commissioner Pacheco?
Yeah, I make a motion to direct the county manager to start making the changes to the AO 47. And on that too, I just want to make a quick note, as you were talking about that too. We just got an email from a commission office that they set up with their staff, just working on it right now because the commissioner had to resign. And he got a request for his personnel file, which includes his birth certificate and driver's license. It's not okay. You know, it might be legal, but I don't know if it's ethical, and I'm going to work to make some changes that people's private personnel files don't get put out there. And if anybody got that information, you now have the ability to have some problems on you if you release those things, because the birth certificate is protected by state law. So if you've got that information, you publicize it, you know, you now have custody of that. So it's bullying. So.
Madam Chair, I'd second the motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, item J1.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
you mean to handle this?
sure.
Thanks. Okay, this is on advisory boards. I'm going to go over 2 real quickly and some potential solutions to these 2. The first one is the Emergency Medical Service Advisory Council. The Emergency Medical Service Advisory Council reviews hospital protocol and procedure and makes suggestions and feedback based on its findings. It is not state mandated. The function of the board can be handled by county staff. This board meets virtually twice a year so that they can satisfy the direction of the board. However, the last time they met to do any essential work was in 2019. Prior to this, there is no record of the board meeting for any substantive reason within the past 7 years, which is as long as the board record retention goes back. Second one, Emergency Medical Service Review Committee. Very similar to the last one. The Emergency Medical Service Review Committee is an advisory board which reviews Certificate of Public Necessity and Convenience, or COPNC certificates. It is not state mandated. The function of this board can be handled by county staff. The COPNC approval must come to the Board of County Commissioners for approval, regardless of the existence of this advisory board. Here's a real kicker here. This board hasn't met for over 15 years. In fact, the last time it met was 2005. So here are the conclusions, and then I'll make a motion. I originally sought to combine these boards with the Emergency Medical Service Council, but while their names are similar, their functions would potentially create some conflict. Thanks to the advice of staff and my desire to compromise, instead, I would like to dissolve the Emergency Medical Service Review Committee, that's the one that hasn't met since 2005, and take its task performed by the Brevard County Commission. Mr. Wallace, Colonel Wallace is here to answer any questions that you may have. The motion is to approve legislative intent and permission to advertise for public hearing to amend Brevard County Code relating to Emergency Medical Service Review Committee and dissolve the committee. That's the motion. That's the background. I'm here to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Pritchett?
I'd like to second that. I had an opportunity to talk with staff about it yesterday, and I think this is a good move.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Item K, public comments. Ron Jagutis.
Ron Dragutis. Perhaps some of these issues can be resolved in a different manner. Perhaps in the budget, such as one thing for document requests and so forth. Perhaps the budget needs to create a first in this county, or perhaps anywhere, is to create a position called Citizens Council, an advocate for the citizens, that when there are certain requests or certain issues coming up, they can speak to them and see how that can be handled. Not the council that represents the commissioners and staff and so forth, but a citizens council. Legal advice to citizens and related to Brevard County matters. Thank you.
All right, Kristen Lordy. I keep mispronouncing your last name. It's Lorty.
Lorty,
Yeah.
thank you. So I had a couple of items I wanted to cover under the general comments. One of them has to do with the consent agenda. So the consent agenda for today's meeting has 14 items on it, and then 7 items have been under the action. My comment under consent agenda is that that's a lot of county business that goes under the consent agenda. Not many people, I had no idea that a consent agenda ever existed. So anybody in the audience or watching the recording is serve to get aware of the consent agenda, to look at the consent agenda, familiarize yourself because of all the backup that's available there, and to consider that when you make your comments, so we can talk about those items. But the consent agenda items are not even read aloud. And I would mention that at the Titusville meeting, they read the consent agenda items aloud. So at least people know what's being voted on. And I find that a very commendable practice. So I certainly have questions since I've gotten to know the consent agenda, making sure that the right things are going on in general. I tend to go to the COCO meetings where I have a lot more detail on that, but I just wanted to make that comment. I want to give an appreciation for Mr. Abate. I appreciated that in the Florida Today article that Mr. Abate simply said, we didn't get some of the things right in our paperwork and we're cleaning it up. I find that commendable. That was one of the highlights of the article. I also think that our citizen watchdogs should be able to do what they to watchdog and without their motives being questioned. Seagrass and the lagoon is one of the hottest topics in this county. And if we have people that that they cost $1,000 a month, and there's two of them, and we have 600,000 people in Brevard, and we got two troublemakers that costing $1,000 a month, that's $1,000 of taxpayer money that's well spent. So I'd like to make that. I'm glad that the article did get written by Florida Today. I am curious as to why they're only doing 2 or 3 requests a month. I want to follow up on my invoice comment that the invoice, I did protest the invoice. These invoices are often falling under the extensive time is under the redaction because we have to do this redaction. And when I actually got the information because I protested, there was no information redacted because I went to the RFP and I saw that there was no exempt information that was stated as a public record. So I would just like to let everyone know that to watch out for these redaction time costs, which allow these hefty invoices to be charged to citizens, in which I personally validated was not the case. So I think that we've got some hefty fees going on even with the disputed new policy with the old policy. And I'm about out of time. I appreciate the public's right to comment here. Commissioner Pritchett, nice to meet you. It is my first time at the meeting. I certainly have a lot on my mind today, not supportive of some of these policies, but I am glad that the public can speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the public comment cards I have. All right, moving on to board report. Mr. Bate,
Excuse me, I have no report.
Ms. Jornby,
No report.
Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief here. Billy Prasad is no longer in my office. He is with the county, and his lovely bride-to-be, Bethany, has stepped up to that role. I'm very proud to say she's the chief of staff, even though Billy's suggestion was that she be commander-in-chief, which is probably closer to the way she does run that office. So I'm very grateful for her continued service. And we have someone new, Mr. Brian Bond, who is out there in the tie. So I really appreciate his service, not only to the county before as a sheriff's deputy, but continued on the county commission. So thank you, and appreciate the time.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to make a travel request. If the board agrees, I will be traveling and representing the board on the Economic Development Commission trip to Washington, D.C. on May 17th through the 18th, which will also include a meeting in the Pentagon. Estimated expense would be somewhere between $1,500 and $1,600. So,
Commissioner Pritchett.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, I think when we made that adjustment last time, it's under your office budget for those types of things, but I'm glad to know you're going.
okay.
So, yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad you got to go.
Commissioner Tobias.
Yeah, same thing. I think we did away with that as long as you meet within the guidelines that Commissioner Pritchett, you're more than welcome to bring it up, and we look forward to hearing the result. But yeah, you don't need to bring that as long as it's underneath. We trust you.
Okay, just want to do for Commissioner Tobias did it. I want to do it as well. Recently in our office, we had all of our staff resign at the same time. One of the, I'm not mean, I promise.
What are you guys doing with your staff?
One of them moved up to north to work with his dad to take over his multi-million-dollar business. That's good. Miss Carol, she served for a long time, and she was just ready to move on. So anyways, I brought two of our new staff here. I have Miss Suzette Mainers and Cecile Quist. And our thing is, we're all learning. These are very qualified people, but we might not know how to do everything yet, but we're certainly happy. So as we get to know a few things, but thank you guys for being patient with that, and county staff for helping train all of us again. I certainly appreciate it, and welcome aboard, guys.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. As your representative to CFX, I'd like to bring you up to date. We had our monthly meeting last Thursday. So I just wanted to let you guys know the Central Florida Expressway year-to-date gross revenue is $399 million. We're a very efficient operation. Our net out of that 399 is $204 million for future projects. Currently, we have 60 miles of widening projects underway and 27 miles of milling and resurfacing. Boy, wouldn't we like to have that kind of budget for roads here in this county. We're continuing to see, as I mentioned last time, a decrease in cash and toll by plate. 5 years ago, our cash and toll by plate was 17% of total revenue. Currently, it is just shy of 4%. Toll by plate is fairly stable, even when the rates for toll by plate versus transponders has doubled, which, as I alluded to and mentioned last time, it's interesting that people that would rather pay by plate than use a credit card, we've done surveys and they just feel it's an invasion of privacy. They would just rather continue to pay the extra $1.50 to $2 that each toll by plate incurs. And also one other good news item, we're the only toll agency in the state that offers discounts, volume discounts. So if you go through our tolls 20 times, you get one rate decrease. If you go through 30 times or more, you get another increase. So I thought that was a nice gesture on our part. I would like to propose that we write a letter to Governor DeSantis. We know that we have a vacancy here. We've also heard a lot of rumors whether that vacancy will be filled or not. I think that our input would be important for him and his staff to hear. So I would like us to compose some kind of a letter. We're in a unique position that going forward with only 4 commissioners in a charter county like we are, we incur some issues that other counties don't have. So we have a burden here until he appoints someone. For example, 2-2 ties hamstrings our ability to move forward, as does items that require a supermajority of 4 votes. With only 4 commissioners, the supermajority now becomes not a supermajority, but a unanimous majority. These problems will persist for the business of the county for the next 7 months unless Governor DeSantis makes an appointment available to fill the empty position. In short, unless and until the governor fills this empty seat, our ability to conduct the business of the county will be hamstrung and unnecessarily difficult. So I would like to make a motion that we compose a letter and have our esteemed chair sign it and send it off to the governor.
We asked for an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that. I
Okay.
think it's a good idea. Commissioner Tavaya, you good with that?
Support.
Okay. You gonna give us a letter? And we'll
I
sign it?
can compose it. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Next, we will be, this is a good news thing. Logan will be putting a picture up for us. Yes, there we go. I'm not sure I ever mentioned this story to you guys, my fellow commissioners, but in the fall of 2020, I was stopped at this red light. And this red light is at Wickham Road, heading west, right at Morrell Road. And to the right, of course, is, not in this picture, but to the right is Morrell Road, and it winds through Suntree and Vieira. To the left, we have the zoo. We have that nice big zoo sign there, and over top of it is hanging the sign that says Morrell Road. And I thought, that's kind of weird. They should have their own name for a road, like Zoo Trail Road or something like that. So that inspired me to reach out to Keith Winston, who is the director of the zoo. And I suggested that we change the name of the road. I reached out to Eden, who was our county attorney at the time, and to find out how difficult that would be. And she said that would be no problem at all. So I talked to Keith and I gave him the idea and I said, how about if we encourage the elementary schools in the county to get involved and have some kind of a contest in naming the road? So lastly, we did that and we had over 4,000 kids, and this is what they came up with.
Oh,
So the road will now become Wildlife Way instead of Morel Road. So you'll have Wildlife Way on the street sign, you'll have a big Brevard sign, and we can thank the Pinewood Elementary kids for coming up with that winning answer.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. All right, I have just one request, and I wanted a little more information on it before I brought it to you guys, but I think it's more time pressing. And I just see if the board is opposed to me asking the governor, or at least signing a letter asking the governor not to veto our, the zoo's budget request. I think it's $950,000. It's actually for the aquarium project.
Yeah, I agree.
And if the board's not in agreement with it, I'm happy to sign it as an individual, but.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to do that.
Okay. I see Commissioner Tobias rolling his eyes over there.
Yeah. Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm only concerned that this while I'm not in support of it, from your perspective, this brings an added light to it. So my thought is if you're interested in bringing it to his attention and you think that he'll support it, great. But I don't know that it's the greatest idea to bring. Again, I haven't had any conversation with him. I don't know the governor
Yeah.
personally. I don't know, but
Sometimes being quiet is better than.
yeah, that's
Okay.
absolutely 100% your call. I just, don't
Well,
know that.
maybe I'll have that discussion with Mr. Winstead to see what his thoughts are on that, but you may be right.
So I don't know on that one, Madam Chair.
But you guys aren't opposed to, if I do the
No,
letter,
and
if
I
after
have
talking
some
to him.
ideas, so I'll make a phone call or two and see.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, well, that's all I have. So
All right, fun time
With
was had
that-
by all.
meeting adjourned. Oh, yeah. Before we adjourn? Yeah. I got it, guys. All right, we're going to move into the executive session. So as authorized by section 286-00 or 011, section 8, Florida statutes, Brevard County Board of County Commissioners will now commence an attorney-client session, discuss litigation and strategy and settlement negotiations in the case of Rachel M. Sadoff in her official capacity as Brevard County Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller versus Board of County Commissioners, Brevard County, Florida, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, case number 05-2019-CA-058736. The persons attending the attorney-client session meeting are Rita Pritchett, County Commissioner, District 1. John Tobias, County Commissioner, District 3. Kurt Smith, County Commissioner, District 4. Christine Zonka, County Commissioner, District 5. Frank Abate, County Manager. Abigail Joramby, County Attorney, and the Court Reporter. The attorney-client session will be held in the County Manager's Conference Room, 3rd floor of Building C at the Brevard County Operations Center, 2725 Judge Fran Jamison Way, Vieira, Florida, 32940. The estimated length of the attorney-client session is 1 hour or less. I will now entertain a motion to temporarily adjourn to reconvene in the County Manager's Conference Room. Motion by Commissioner Tobias, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida. Space Code